Midnight Cowboy by James Leo Herlihy, the basis for the classic film of the same name starring Jon Voight and Dustin Hoffman. So the film Midnight Cowboy is just an all-time classic. You know, spawned the now iconic line, "I'm walking here." It also remains the only X-rated film to ever win Best Picture, even though there is absolutely no reason at all that that film needed to be rated X. But I digress. And also, Dustin Hoffman absolutely deserved a Best Supporting Actor Oscar for his portrayal of Ratso in that movie because that is truly, I think, one of the all-time great performances, possibly. And Jon Voight was also stellar in the movie too. Just a great movie all around, really. But as renowned as the film is, it has had the effect of overshadowing the book, which was its source material, to the point where many may have even forgotten or been unaware that it was based on a book. And that is a crying shame because I'm here to tell you that the novel Midnight Cowboy is absolutely fantastic. This book, right up front, may end up on my year-end best books list. And, you know, we're only in January. Um, I'm not saying that it will, but I'm saying that it absolutely could end up on my best list because it is that good. It is truly a masterful book. And I'm going to give you the poop on it. So, what is the story of Midnight Cowboy? Well, if you've seen the film is quite faithful to the book. So, in short, and also, speaking of short, this book is not a terribly long book. It's on the shorter side itself. But in short, Midnight Cowboy is the story of Joe Buck, a young, well, in the film he is from Texas, I think, but in the book here, I think he actually grows up in New Mexico. But Joe Buck is a naive young man who has little life experience due largely to the fact that his childhood was one of neglect and borderline abandonment. But he is also not terribly bright, but he is good looking and he's good in the sack. And so one day he decides to parlay those charms into a career in New York City as a gigolo. So he packs up his things and heads east to go prostitute himself on the streets of the Big Apple. But wouldn't you know it, prostituting is harder than it looks, I guess, or at least when you're a male, it is. So he ends up being a pretty poor gigolo and eventually gets evicted from the hotel was staying in and struggles with homelessness and destitution. But he also makes the acquaintance of one Rico Rizzo, portrayed iconically in the film by Dustin Hoffman, a crippled con man who kind of partners up with him, and they spend quite a bit of time trying to make a go of it on the mean streets of New York City. Things becoming more desperate all the while until ultimately leading to a tragic conclusion. So that is the broad arc of the story of Midnight Cowboy. So let's talk about the technical qualities of this story. So the writing of Midnight Cowboy is superb. It truly is. This is a phenomenally well-written book. It is masterfully executed on a prose level. The writing in this book is quite elegant. It really is. It's striking, but it never goes into like purple prose territory. It's never like look at me type writing. It's just beautiful, elegant prose, which accentuates the story by being beautiful and telling the story with great pizzazz, you might say. It is a greatly written book. James Leo Herlihy, this is the only thing I've read by him, but he was one heck of a writer because Midnight Cowboy is fantastically written on a line-by-line basis. It really is. No complaints with the writing, just stellar stuff. Now let's talk about the characters because The characters in Midnight Cowboy are also equally fantastic. In fact, Midnight Cowboy may actually be one of the best books that I've ever read on a character level, because these characters are wonderfully rendered, and they're rendered quite artfully too. Joe Buck is, again, he's very naive and he's also kind of dim-witted. But the marvelous thing about the characters in this book is that it's showing, not telling. It's nothing is ever like just bluntly or artlessly kind of um, foisted on the reader. It's all subtly done through the depictions of the behaviors and the actions of these characters. You get the picture of who they are as people without um, too much exposition, like explicitly detailing their mentality. It is truly masterfully done, because again, it's showing, it's not telling. But these characters are quite well rendered. They really are. They are very rounded. They are very human, and they feel very real. And they're also quite endearing. You really do get behind Joe and Ratso as the story goes on. You really do feel for them. They're quite sympathetic, and yeah, no complaints whatsoever with the characters in this book, because they are, once again, just like the prose, they are masterfully executed. So, great on the character front as well. Now, as to the story of this book, also no complaints. Like I said, it's not a long book, it's on the shorter end of things, but it moves quite well. And what's more, the thematic heart of this book is quite poignant, I think, because Midnight Cowboy is about something. Like most great literature, it does have something to say. And the main preoccupation of the story of the book is loneliness, isolation, alienation, if you will. Joe Buck grows up, again, living a childhood of neglect, and he is unable to really form any intimate connections with people, um, other than just fleeting sexual encounters. And one thing that the book really wonderfully illustrates is that sex is not love. And that's what Joe kind of comes to realize after a certain point, is that um, carnality is not the same thing as emotional intimacy. And so, what Joe is really looking for over the course of this story is connection, human friendship, companionship. And he ultimately finds that in Ratso, the crippled con man, which he meets in New York. And the bond that they form in this is really kind of one for the ages. This is probably one of the best books about male bonding. I mean, it's like, Tom and Huck, right? It really is. It's that level of like, um, just bromance, right? It's kind of like that. Not in like a homoerotic way, but in like a deep, intimate friendship kind of capacity. That's what it's like. And the book is really one of the greatest portrayals of loneliness and isolation I think I've ever read. Probably one of the greatest portrayals of it ever written. Like, you really do feel just kind of the solitude of Joe over the course of this story, how he's yearning for connection with another person, but he, again, because he's kind of slow, he kind of lacks the ability to kind of cognize his own longing, and so it's a very affecting portrayal, I think. And again, you really do feel the loneliness of this character as the story goes on, and it kind of cuts to the quick. It really does. So yeah, two great Midnight Cowboy by James Leo Herlihy. I'm giving Midnight Cowboy an A plus. That's right. This book gets the highest rating that I can bestow. It is that good. The prose is fantastic. The characters are fantastic, and Joe's arc over the course of this story, as he goes from man child to man whore, and ultimately just to mature man, is wonderfully executed. It really is. It is a very human, very real portrayal, And again, the heart of the story of loneliness and solitude and the yearning for human intimacy is pretty timeless. It is pretty timeless. I think this book probably, will always have the power to pluck at the heartstrings because the subject matter which it concerns itself with is just, like I said, timeless. So yeah, my rating for Midnight Cowboy is A+. Once again, we're only in January, but I could definitely see this book going on my best of list at year's end. I'm not saying it will, but it definitely could because it is that good. It is a stone cold masterpiece of a book, and it's sad that the film has overshadowed it so much. I mean, I love the film too. The film is just a masterpiece in its own right, kind of a boundary pushing movie in some ways, but the book is just such a gem. It really is. It is kind of an overlooked gem now, and that's a shame because it deserves much more recognition than I think it probably at present gets. So yeah, A+ for me. Now, have you read Midnight Cowboy out there? If you have, let me know down in the comments what you thought about it, whether you have agreed or disagreed with anything I've said, and let me know if you've seen the film, what you think about the film. Just a great film as well, I think. And if you haven't read Midnight Cowboy, this would be a hard recommend for me. I think this book is just one for the ages, just truly a masterpiece of a book, and one that's kind of unsung now due to the fact that it's been overshadowed by its adaptation. Um, but yeah, if you're looking for a book that is compelling, gripping, but also again kind of plucks at the heartstrings and has some really well written characters and just some really well written prose, pick this up because it will satisfy. I would say. And as always, if you have enjoyed anything you've seen or heard here today, remember to hit that like button and subscribe. I would really appreciate it. And until next time, peace.